Thanks for joining us for the February 19th, 2023 episode of Den Excelsior, the Mostly Marvel podcast. I'm Dennis, and I'll be your host as we recap the latest super news that caught our attention across the multiverse. But as the show title suggests, it'll probably be mostly Marvel. Later in this episode, we'll be putting a spotlight on the 1987 movie Innerspace. But before that, we'll be getting into some news. And for those of you tuning in, don't be shy. We love hearing from you in the comments. And if you can't get enough of us, you should just visit patreon.com/GenXmedia, where you'll find a variety of creative offerings, including recent episodes of our live after show, The Soapbox. Patrons get exclusive access to chat with us, but if that's not your thing, don't worry. We release them to the public at a later date. Just as a forewarning, we will not be doing a Soapbox tonight, but that doesn't mean you can't go and check out the rather lengthy one that I did last week with Jason Coker on post Ant-Man. It was a long talk about a lot of things. It was funny. Coke just loves to talk, so check it out. It's pretty fun. And then I guess with those formalities out of the way, let's get my special co-host out here right now. He's the short to my Quaid. It's Ricky.
I'd rather be the Meg to your Ryan.
Well, that doesn't quite work, but fair enough. Fair enough. So I know we're going to talk about Innerspace, and I know what you really wanted to do was talk about something else tonight.
That movie by Marvel Studios.
Yeah, that random thing. And I think just to be clear, like the reason I didn't want to do that tonight officially is because the movie came out yesterday at 3:00, and
we're gonna let it cook a little bit.
Yeah. Don't make no mistake. We watched it. We'll talk a little bit about it in a bit. But I just thought really after we got done talking about Ant-Man last week, I really kind of wanted to go retro and just talk with Ricky about another movie that was like a shrinking movie that really I just felt was a big part of my childhood, and it was something that I wanted to share with you. So that's why we didn't actually try really hard to get a special guest on here. I just wanted it to be
It's
more
really hard to get people to watch Innerspace on a Friday night.
Yeah. Well, you're not supposed to watch it on Friday night, but fair enough. But yeah, I just didn't want to make it a whole fuss, a whole thing, but I did want to watch it and then talk about it with you. So I hope that whoever is tuning in is cool with that. Like if you thought you were getting the Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania episode tonight, sorry, that's not happening. We're doing things different this year. We're giving like Ricky said, we're giving those things time to breathe. You can find reviews on that in a million other outlets. But yeah, it's gonna be a very special episode tonight. With that said, Ricky, what have you been nerding out on this week besides Ant-Man 3?
I mean, we had the big game, right? So with the big game comes sports, but also cool new trailers for a lot of things. What else did I do this week? I turned on my Switch for the first time in like 2 years, and my Joy-Cons are drifting. So I did what anyone does in that situation. I went down the rabbit hole and I bought non-drifting joysticks to put into my Switch. So I'm gonna take apart a Switch later today.
What was the game that was gonna make you play, or you were gonna play?
I think Well, it was just to get ready for. We were gonna have people over for the big game. Like we're gonna get
Uh,
sued for saying it. And I wanted to get Jackbox up and running because it's the easiest thing to hook up to the TV.
gotcha.
And I figured as I was tinkering with that, it's like, oh shit, my Joy-Cons be busted.
Oh, that's a bummer. Mine still work. But I haven't played it in a month or two. Um, anything else? Anything else nerdy that you've been watching?
The Last of Us. I mean, we watched the last Friday because it came out early, but
Yeah,
damn, bro, that show's good.
I finally watched that one. I think on Tuesday, and that was a good one. It was fun because like I was like, wait, how did this happen? How did it? Wait, did they get away? Oh wait, no, this is what happens. And I was like, oh yeah, I remember. Like it all comes back to me in waves when like it was so long ago that I played that game. It's kind of fun reliving a lot of the moments as they happen, but with amazing actors. I also really like that the guy that was what is it, Marlene, or what is her name, the girl that runs.
I think it is Marlene, right?
Yeah, her right hand man.
Hmm.
Did you see that? That's
He's
actually
from
the
the
guy.
game. Yeah,
He's the guy who played Tommy in the original
yeah,
game.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think that was so cool that they got to have him come back, even though he got annihilated at the end of that episode.
Oh
Uh,
man, I just remember a little like spoiler for not a Last of Us podcast, but at the end when they're having that conversation with Ellie and it's Sam, right? Sam and Henry.
Sam and Henry, yeah,
Yeah, and she's like, "Oh my god, does he turn?" I'm like, "I don't think so." And then they they cut to
yeah.
him sitting on the bed. I'm like, "Damn it!"
No, I
Ah,
remember. I like it. It took me a while to remember, but I was like, wait, no, he does turn. I remember this. Yeah, awkward. Yeah, spoilers, but we don't really care. We're like you said, we're not the Last of Us podcast, but
how about
I
you? Anything fun? I know we made Wonder Plan cons or Wonder Con plans.
yeah, we made Wonder Plan cons.
Wonder
Uh,
Plan cons.
no, yeah, I got us our badges for WonderCon. We'll see how many of the days we end up negotiating to go to, and we'll see if we plan out some way to cover that for the show or as a part of this show somehow. But no, other than that, I did finally finish my binge of that 70s show. It didn't end spectacularly at all. Like the last season's pretty rough because they lost Ashton Kutcher and Topher Grace. Um,
Is that when you went to Two and a Half Men? Or was that after?
no, I think he was after, but he went to go do movies and stuff.
Okay.
Like he was doing a lot more, and he was also dating Demi Moore at a certain point by that time,
Yeah, okay.
which
Yeah.
is really awkward because like they got Bruce Willis to be on an episode of that show, and I'm just like, you guys have the weirdest relationship ever. They're like friends, like they're just too good of friends. Like you should not be comfortable with the guy that is now doing your ex-wife. Like it's, I don't know. I guess some people would think that's healthy, but who knows? Anyways, yeah, I finished that one, and yeah, Last of Us was another good one for me. But I've also been binging some like trash TV on Netflix. Uh, oh man, the new one is Perfect Match.
What's that
Okay,
one?
I've talked about how awesome The Circle is,
Yeah.
but I've also talked about Too Hot to Handle, and I've
Hmm.
talked about Love is Blind. All of these lovely trash shows that have just nurtured me through this pandemic. Like, I don't think they're good shows, but they are highly entertaining. Well, there's another one like The Ultimatum. That one's really gross, but Nick Lachey he's like part of at least two of those shows that I named.
I saw him at a
Uh,
football game once. He's with this
oh yeah,
kid. It was weird because like we were walking opposite directions in passing, and like it was like one of those looks where like, oh, I know who he is, but like he recognized that I knew who he was. I didn't say anything. I don't want to blow up his spot with this kid, but he like gave
that's
me the
funny.
nod. So that's how you know. Like,
That's funny.
thank you, sir.
Yeah. So he's like he's like a producer on several of those shows, like those love romance shows, right? And so Netflix decided that he is the perfect ambassador for their newest guilty pleasure. So they have him hosting a new show that's called Perfect Match, and it's basically taking all of like the hottest singles that have come out of all of their previous trash shows. They're mostly like either love games or love reality shows or competitions or whatever. Doesn't matter. Whatever game they've ever had on Netflix, they took all the hottest single people and they put them on this new reality competition where each of them is trying to find love with other Z-list celebrities. You know what I mean? Like
It's
basically
like the All Stars.
kinda. It's just basically, I mean, obviously they signed up for it, so it's really awkward because these are people who have now, like, once you reach a certain status on these network on these
Yeah,
weird
there's like
reality shows,
there's this.
you your dating circle changes,
Yeah,
right? And so like it's kind of funny because like they just some of them have already dated each other before. But basically, the way it works is there's an even number of guys and girls, right, or like exact same number on the first night, and they have to kind of mingle. They just get a bunch of alcohol and like they just mingle like in this really nice resort. And by the end of the night, they have to pair off, right? Like each guy has to find a girl, vice versa, and they have to go off to their own rooms because there's only so many rooms, right? And so it's really awkward because like first some people just hit it off right away, but like some are like kind of negotiating what their options are, but you really just can't help but feel terrible for the last two who are just like, I
I
guess we're
guess this is
going. Yeah, I
it.
guess you're it. Like nobody feels good in that situation, right? But so then the way the show works is every time after the matching occurs, the next day they do some fun game that's like a test to see their compatibility. Like it might be like a pop quiz, or it might be like a like some kind of endurance challenge or something just to test how well this couple functions together, each couple. And whoever wins gets to go to the boardroom. And what happens is in the boardroom, they have like a nice fancy like touch screen with on the bottom it's got all the current people that are in the game, and at the top are like maybe four dudes, and they get to choose two dudes to introduce into the game, right? But then what that does is, and they get to decide who they go on dates with, right? So they get to break up existing couples. And the trick is they'll go on that date, but at the end of the night, now there's two extra dudes in the in the in the whole thing, right? So that means that two dudes are going home that night. And then the next night they'll do a game, and then they'll do the voting, and then they'll choose two out of four girls. So every other night two dudes are going home, every other night two girls are going home. And so they got to keep like, it's really just funny to watch like how they decide who to bring people in. Sometimes a couple will go in and they'll be like, so I'm not really feeling this, so I'm gonna pick one for me. And they're like, whoa, what? Like I thought we were doing this together. And like, but what are you gonna do? You can't like force somebody to be in a couple with you if they don't want to, right? So you just gotta be cool and be like, all right,
It's
fine,
like
go
the
on a date.
temple battle couple
Yeah.
edition.
And the thing that cracks me up the most about these shows is like everything they do, every decision they make, like they know that a million people are watching it. And so they have to make like, they have to, they have to be as the best person they could possibly be on TV. And some people, even trying that, just can't. They just can't. And it's too funny, dude. You got to check that one out. It is probably the funniest stupid trash show I've seen in a long time. 4 episodes are on Netflix right now, and they'll do another 4 every week.
All right,
It's
you
garbage.
might have convinced me to watch trash
It's
television.
it's garbage. Like, and then the funny thing about it is it's kind of like the Avengers, right? To all the other Netflix shows, because when we're watching it, we're like, well, what's that show? I've never watched that one. Now I kind of want
It's
to watch
called
that show.
Brand Synergy.
Yeah, right. So now I'm like watching some other show that one of them is on, and it's pretty cool. It's called The Mole. But that one's just a straight like scavenger hunt game. There's no like
Mhm.
romance. That's the funniest part about this show. Some of these people are not from shows where they were trying to find love. They're just from game shows, right? But like, so they're playing this game very game like. And then you have other people that did Love is Blind, which was like a whole like intense dating simulation where like where you talk to somebody that you're falling in love with for like 3 weeks without ever seeing them. Super intense, right? And then they go through this whole experience of almost getting married. And so those people like have a very different mentality of what they're looking for coming on this show. And it's just weird and funny because like some people are like, yeah, I'm in this to win it. And you're like, and the other ones are like, I hope I find love. And you're like, you're gonna clash really hard with each other. It's
But
really
they're
weird.
all making money at the end of the day.
Yeah, they all make money. And then they all get to like the ones that don't find love can just hook up with random groupies and stuff that on Instagram, whatever. But you know, it's still fun. Trash is good.
Well,
So yeah,
well, speaking of somewhat trash, we have some news.
you
Should we jump?
just set up your news as somewhat trash.
I mean,
That is
we'll get into
amazing.
it.
That is amazing. I'm very happy to segue in there, but like got to work on those,
All
man.
right,
That
yeah.
was
Let's get into some trash news.
some
Alrighty.
trash news.
Super Bowl. Yeah, we had some trailers. We had a Guardians trailer, which was a lot of the same, just a little bit more context there. But I think the biggie of the bunch was the trailer for The Flash. The movie in terminal that was delayed and revived and is now the jumping off point for the new DCEU.
It's kind of
Dennis,
like both things, right? Because
yeah,
it's a saying goodbye to the old universe. So it's kind of giving characters from that one
goodbye
last
and
chance. Yeah.
hello.
Yeah.
And then it has the whole Ezra thing surrounding it. How many Batman does it take, do you think, to fix this movie?
I think Michael Keaton doing CG flips is enough Batman to make me want to see this
Well,
movie.
you're in luck.
Like I didn't know how much I wanted to see Michael Keaton in a modern day superhero movie until like I mean as Batman until I saw that trailer. Um I was perfectly fine with the Vulture being the last role he ever played in a superhero film, except for in Morbius, which was terrible. I was fine with Birdman being the
He
last time.
fulfilled the Birdman prophecy.
He really truly did, right? Like but this man, as in that cowl with that stiff neck again, the super stiff neck is back, and I
We gotta
still
remember he signed up for another movie that got Batgirl. He's in Batgirl
he
too.
was in Batgirl, and that will never see the light
Um,
of day. I've heard more and more stories that that was just a terrible movie. That
I
is
I
why
wonder though if they're biting. I mean, you got Keaton, you got Brendan Fraser, who's on a hot streak right now. At what point do you just put that out there? You know,
I from what I've read, it would do harm to everyone's careers. That's what I've read. It's that bad.
um, but nonetheless, I think last show I was quoted saying, "You know what? I want a blue Batman." And god damn it, this trailer gave us a Batfleck in blue. I think I specifically said I wanted the
Is that
Batfleck
a
costume.
Batfleck in blue?
That's a Batfleck cowl, and it's in blue and gray.
Okay.
Whether that's him in there, he's definitely in the movie. He's in the trailer.
Yeah.
Sure, we'll leave that up to B. But even
Yeah.
when they're the shot of Keaton's specialty suits that he has, and one of them is a blue and gray suit as well.
Cool. Yeah.
But yeah, I think a
I
lot of
I'm
people were
weirded
pretty
out by
hyped up.
that suit not having like some kind of crotch anything. Like it's just stretchy. It's stretchy pants. Look at that.
Yeah, well,
It's really weird looking.
it's just a
You
onesie.
got to put underwear on Batman. It just helps. It helps break up everything going on.
I think that that was a really good trailer. We got a another look at Supergirl as well.
Though, like, I mean, we can keep talking about this, but I don't like the way you glossed over that Guardians trailer because that trailer, more than any trailer I've seen in a long time, has prepared me to be like, I'm gonna cry a lot in this one. I know. I thought I was gonna cry in Wakanda Forever, and I didn't. And I know I'm a monster for that. But I'm gonna cry in Guardians because look at what they've done for that universe. They have given that universe something that the DC universe has a long time to get to. You know what I mean? Uh, I like the Suicide Squad movie. It is not the Guardians universe. It's
Mhm.
not. It's good. It's fun, but it can't. So we can keep talking about the Flash though. But I'm just saying, don't sleep on that
I'm
Guardians
not
trailer.
sleeping on it. I don't think it added anything new to what we've. That's
It gave Peter looking at Nebula in a way he's never
the
looked at her
second
before.
Guardians trailer or the third.
I don't remember. I think it's the
Um,
second one.
but
Yeah.
yeah, it's definitely more the same. I think the Flash trailer though was the big one coming out of it.
The Flash trailer was big, but
There's
there's
a lot
also
of baggage with that movie, and
there is baggage, and I was like, I'm gonna watch this movie. I'm hoping that Ezra Miller donates all of the proceeds to some charity for battered women or something like that. That would make me feel a lot better about this, because like that would be good PR and just it would make people feel better about this movie.
yeah.
But
Well,
aside from the Ezra Miller of it all, the rest of the movie looks freaking amazing.
yeah. Surprisingly, not a lot of Ezra Miller in that Flash trailer. I think for good reason.
But whenever there was two of them.
Yeah,
There was always
they
two of them.
double down.
So maybe that's why it's like, there's only so much you need. I'm excited. I'm excited to see what other surprises they have not revealed for that movie because I feel like,
Mhm.
this is basically Warner Brothers's Spider-Man No Way Home
Yeah,
is what this is. They're just gonna do the same thing, and we're gonna see a lot of that going forward, guys. No Way Home isn't even the first one to really do that. It's just No Way Home did it at a time when people really needed it so badly that they spent an entire year spoiling that movie before it came out.
I think the scale of that movie too, right?
The scale of it was
Yeah,
pretty nuts. But I think other franchises that have done things like that, it just didn't hit as
I
hard.
think the Hail Mary would be if they pull a bail out.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering because that Bat Cycle looks like Christian Bale's Bat Cycle, right?
There
Am
is
I
a blue
wrong?
Batman on that, but you're not wrong.
Like it looks like Bale's, and that's why I was like, is this is my Batman in this movie too? Because that is my Batman. I know he
Maybe I
played
mean
the
I would
voice.
you be happy just to see him as Wayne, or Bruce as Bruce Wayne?
No, 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 no. Because at this point now, Spider-Man has ruined
Yeah,
that,
you need him. You
right?
need him in the suit.
Spider-Man has ruined that. Like a year ago, when I was like, "What if they just like show up and don't wear the costumes?" I was entertaining that idea, but we're past that. Like
I
Spider-Man
mean,
has ruined us for everything. I demand nothing but the coolest things ever.
a Clooney,
That's what I want. What?
a Clooney.
Sure, put Clooney in the suit. Dude, I'm not gonna hate anymore. Like I think the older I get, the more I find something charming about. Dude, I mean, let's just reminder. It was like 1 month ago that you and I watched Catwoman for the first time, and we're like, you know what? Not so bad.
Yeah, I don't think I have bad memories of those Batman film, and then certainly the
Yeah,
Nolan ones are in a league of their own.
I
So
know.
yeah,
I know
give
that some
me
of these things
pepper it
were
all in.
yeah, some of these things are box office failures. Some of these things are like way missing the mark. But we'll watch them all and we'll talk about them because there's something to love always. You know what I mean? Like
They're fun.
Even Kroll. Kroll was kind of a hard one. There was some really cool stuff in that movie, though. Even if I don't
Yeah.
necessarily ever want to watch it again, like and that's the fun of it. There you can feel there is love. There is
Hmm.
love that goes into these things, and so that's why I'm going to see the Flash because even if there's one shitty guy in that movie, there's a lot of love that went into that movie, and you can see it, dude. Like you can see
Well,
it.
not much longer as that movie comes out in June, but we will have to wait longer for Captain Marvel 2, The Marvels. This
Yeah,
poster
November.
dropped today, and yeah, this movie got pushed back from July to November.
I think November is a good space for Marvel movies, though. Like,
It's a well, it was gonna come out in July, and then you would have almost a year before the next thing, the next movie.
yeah, and I
Right?
think they realized from probably like the internet being pissed off for the last month and a half that we had no Marvel content. That Marvel needs to do a better job of drip feeding us.
Well,
So
I think that was we'll go next little bit. Feige's been doing the rounds. Obviously, there's a new Marvel movie, so with that comes little tidbits. Um, One of the main points was they're going to slow down the frequency of the shows, make it a little bit more spaced out.
damn it.
Um, they kind of were saying maybe 5 shows in 1 year is a little too much.
No, I need 8. I need 8.
But that would kind of go well with whatever they're planning. Obviously, I think we need a Secret Invasion show before we get into the Marvels. So had things stood where they were, we would have gotten Secret Invasion probably immediately after Mando, and then leads into Marvels, and it's it's a lot of stuff on there.
That's how I like it.
But a slower drip, as you will.
Yeah, it's necessary. It's if they can't keep up with our pace of consuming content, well, one, they're gonna start losing a lot of subscribers, which they already have. I heard they lost a shit ton in at the end of that two
Hmm.
year that three no that 3 year deal.
Hmm.
The one that we were on.
Yeah,
They had a huge drop off of
yeah.
subscribers after that. So
Well, Iger's come out and said too after they had an investor meeting this past week, saying they're just gonna be a little bit more conservative with everything all around. For the most part, Marvel operated on a kind of a blank check policy, so they seem to be kind of uh, reining that in a bit. Um, I don't know. I mean, I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing, you know.
well, I
But
do, but
the other little tidbits coming out of his rounds, his media rounds, is Harrison Ford is playing the president, or Harrison Ford playing Thunderbolt Ross. Thunderbolt Ross will be
president of the
the
United
president of the
States.
United States in Captain America.
Okay.
The next Spider-Man story is set, and the script for 4 is being written. So some good news there. And he just basically reconfirmed that Deadpool 3 will be rated R. So,
Yeah.
yep.
Yeah.
Always good to hear from Papa Feige.
Yeah, I've been seeing lots of other like news, like rumors and stuff about all this stuff. But yeah, I think somebody got cast as a lead female role in the Deadpool movie recently. Um,
Yes.
I don't know what the character she's
Emma
playing is.
Corrin and Unknown Villain.
Yeah, yeah. No, I'm excited. I do think it's a responsible thing to not do what we did last year again because that was intense. That was a
I
lot.
mean, the state of the world is looking different this
Yeah,
year than it is
yeah.
next year.
It is.
So
It
it's
is.
just, I think, smart business all around to just, you know, throttle things a bit until
You
you
want
figure out what's going to happen.
to talk about smart business?
Oh yeah,
There's
they
some.
got
There's some,
how many of these guys did they get out of you?
dude. So Hasbro. So Dan Yoon, I said last week, tweeted that this week some new drops would be coming out, but he didn't really say what. Other than that Yondu that we showed off last week, I think, or 2 weeks ago. The Yondu was a Target exclusive that went up for pre-sale on I think Valentine's Day. But it actually was not the only figure. They snuck in a potential build or army builder here, inspired by the Hawkeye show. It's a tracksuit mafia figure, and oh my god, I love this thing.
Just the
I love
weapons
it.
alone,
The
I think.
weapons. He's got a golf club, a crowbar, a baseball bat, and a machete, and a Molotov cocktail. And he comes with like 3 different heads from the different characters that we met in that show as the Tracksuit Mafia. This is amazing. I got 4, just so you know.
Oh
4.
god.
Come on, man. They're too cool. They're too cool. I love that one of them's got the hooded like mask, like the ski mask on.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you can just have a couple
You
ski
can
mask
double up on
guys.
him.
Yeah, you just double up on him, and then you have the other 2 heads, and there you go. You're good. You're good. Or you could put other people's heads on him. I really like that. Like most of the skin color is hidden on these characters. So like a little bit at the neck, but other than that, you can trade out the hands and the heads and have whatever character you want in a
Yeah, you
tracksuit.
can get pretty funky with it.
Yeah, dude, it's a tracksuit, man. It's so good. But yeah, and then that was also a Target exclusive that went up the same time as Yondu. And then later in the freaking day, like it was no specific times. Hasbro or Target was just throwing these up one at a time. Like I think that tracksuit was supposed to be up at 10 in the morning. It went up at like 1 p.m. And then like a little later, the Yondu was there, and then way later in the day, an astonishing Ant-Man figure went
It's
out.
a good looking Ant-Man.
I didn't even see the post until the next day, sold out. So now I got to chase this one in a few months when it comes out. But it's a good looking figure. It looks like a classic Ant-Man. I think this is actually a Scott Lang, but he originally wore the classic costume too. Um, it looks good, man. It looks really good. And then yeah, next week also, or no, not next week. Hasbro recently announced or confirmed that the Walmart Collector Con, which is actually in March, will be selling a retro painted style of Kraven the Hunter from the animated series. This thing looks ridiculous, dude.
Is
But
this a
that's what he
reissue
looked like in the
figure or is
cartoon.
this original?
What's up?
Is the figure reissue?
The figure is uh pretty much the same Craven figure. The boots are different than the older figures. He's got those Captain America boots that you hate so much.
I love them.
My previous
Pirate
my
boots.
previous my previous Cravens do not have those boots. In fact, one of them is almost like barefooted, I think, or like ballet shoes or something like that. Yeah, but other than that, it's the Craven body and even his accessory. But like that paint scheme is nuts, dude. That is so freaking 90s. It's ridiculous. Like with the zebra prints and the really bright yellow lion like mane and stuff. It's so signature cartoon. I hate that cartoon, but I love these toys. I love them. They look so cool. But yeah, that's all I got. I don't know. I think that one's like the middle of March when that'll be available. They're great. I got that spiral
Single-handedly, you're gonna keep Hasbro in business after that D&D movie bombs.
Yeah, probably. I got that spiral in the mail, by the way, and that is an amazing figure. It's so many arms. I love her. Anyways, you know what, Ricky? I did not prepare. I didn't reach out for a Q&A for this one because I just figured, let's just keep it. Let's keep it tight. Let's keep it to what the task at hand is, and I think we're just gonna go right into
We're gonna
talking
go
about
right into it.
Innerspace.
We're gonna
We
go
can just do
into
that,
the
right?
space.
Yeah, I want to.
Sorry,
I wanted to give you time to really discuss this amazing movie. Now, I think before we go into it really quick, obviously, yeah, this is the part of the show we're going to be talking about Innerspace from 1987, starring Dennis Quaid, Meg Ryan, and Martin Short. It was directed by Joe Dante, which we were kind of inadvertently talking about last week, Ricky, because you were saying how Small Soldiers is one of your favorite movies,
So
and I,
good.
and I was like, you know what's weird about Small Soldiers? It's just Gremlins, and the weirder part is it's directed by the same guy. And
It was meant to be.
go figure, it was meant to be when we chose Innerspace to watch. This is also directed by Joe Dante and also executive produced by Steven Spielberg, just like I believe the other movies we were discussing as well. Because Small Soldiers is a DreamWorks movie, right?
Yeah,
I
I think
believe it
so.
is. Yeah. So Steven Spielberg and Joe Dante, they like cranking out the hits, which is a pretty cool deal. But yeah, so I mean, we're gonna talk about Innerspace. Here's the quick synopsis. 1987, like I said, it's an American sci-fi comedy film, and it's produced by Michael Fennell, and obviously executive produced by Steven Spielberg. It was inspired, like, I mean, I've never seen this movie, but I know about it through like the zeitgeist. It was inspired by the 1970 or 66 science fiction movie Fantastic Voyage, and that's one where like a team of like people have to go shrink down and go in a vessel inside to save a human body. A million cartoons that you grew up with have all parodied that story. Like I know you've seen something in that
Oh
story.
yeah, I mean, I've seen there's
Even Rick and
episodes
Morty, right?
Rick and Morty. There's Magic School Bus, Jimmy Neutron. I've
Yeah,
never heard of Innerspace though, up until
right.
last
So
week.
so the funny thing is Innerspace is actually like a blatant rip off of Fantastic Voyage, and the fact that they actually say the word inner space twice in Fantastic Voyage. So that's where they that's where they came up with the word for the title of the movie. But yeah, what's really funny is this movie, like everybody at Warner Brothers loved this movie. Everybody thought like this thing was going to do gangbusters. They ended up not advertising or marketing it correctly. I've been told, like, I've seen some movie posters that just don't even explain that this is a sci-fi comedy, like nothing about it. There's a movie poster where it's just the little tiny ship in between two people, a person's fingers, and like nothing. No people are on the picture, the poster at all. So, anyways, the movie bombed in theaters. Like it actually, I think it cost like 26 million to make, and it made basically just that back. Um, so what's really funny is as I was getting information about this movie, I found out this is actually one of the first movies that made it big on video. Like, and I
Okay,
do recall that actually, like, I watched this movie at home a lot as a kid, a lot. So I could see how you would have missed this movie because, like, it's just it's a weird one where like people who were into watching a lot of movies at home in the 80s found this movie, but it
this was
didn't.
a blockbuster Friday night for you.
Man, probably, probably. I like I don't remember, specifically the act of renting this movie, but I do remember the act of watching it a lot at home. But with all that said, I want to know, what did you think of this movie?
I just watched it less than an hour ago. I finished it. It was fun. It was fun. I didn't. I mean, we can get more into specifics, but I think I will come out of that saying I had fun with that watching experience.
Yeah,
Um, was
there's a
it the
lot to
most fun I've
like.
ever had? Probably not,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah. No, for sure.
yeah, but it was fun.
So the premise of this movie is basically just uh, a test pilot is signed up to go on this experiment tomorrow to like shrink down in a capsule and go inside a bunny. I'm not really even sure what they were gonna do inside the bunny.
It's like a proof of concept, right?
Yeah, but like that's not how you do proof of concept though. Like that's pretty far down the rabbit hole already, pardon the pun, like um so but what ends up happening is after Dennis Quaid gets shrunk down in this tiny little vessel and they put him inside a syringe, some terrorists come in and just wreck the place, start gently spraying everybody unconscious, and they're trying to steal the microchip technology that is used to make this shrinking thing happen. And they want the vessel too, but the main scientist escapes, and he's frantically trying to find a place to hide this
Wait,
tiny.
are we talking about Ant-Man 2 or are we talking about Innerspace?
See, that's what I'm saying. That's why I wanted you to watch I wanted you to watch this to like really appreciate, that Innerspace walked so Ant-Man could run. You know what I mean? Um,
I think Innerspace is a better movie than Ant-Man 2.
Innerspace is a better movie than Ant-Man 2 and 3, just to be clear.
Oh, okay. Spoilers for next week.
No, but I'm not knocking them really. What I'm saying is Innerspace is a really cool movie. Does it suffer from a lot of the timeliness, or I mean, like, not the timeliness? Does it age well? Meh. Like, I mean, it just looks 80s, right? It just looks like a really 80s movie.
Yeah.
Like so, whenever you watch a sci-fi movie of any type, whether it be comedy or serious, it's kind of more fun if it's like harder to place the time period. You know what I mean? Like The Matrix, yeah, I know, is a very like 90s-ish kind of movie, but like it's kind of timeless in a certain way, more so than
Yeah.
when you watch Innerspace, you're like, damn, that's 80s. But Meg Ryan, damned if she doesn't look good in those 80s haircuts, though. She looks really good. She looks super good. And Dennis Quaid is a super handsome actor back in the day. I mean, he still is now, but it's a charming cast of people. But Martin Short, super young Martin Short, the second movie after Three Amigos. Wow.
Wait, so Three Amigos was first?
Yes.
Okay.
Three Amigos was a year
He was
before
young.
this.
Like I was just surprised how young he was in this movie, or how
Yeah, he
young he
looks
looks
hella
in.
young. Yeah.
Um,
But I didn't finish, just to clarify. So the doctor ends up stabbing this poor assistant manager of a grocery store with a syringe, and then Dennis Quaid lives inside the wacky antics of Martin Short for the rest of the movie, right? And they eventually end up communicating, and they have to work together to solve this whole silly problem as Dennis Quaid navigates his way through all the different parts of Martin Short's body
mhm.
that are PG related. But yeah, that's the premise of the movie, right? But then, like, there's so much more movie after that that I got lost in
It's
how
like, yeah,
much plot.
subplot on subplot.
And you know what was really funny? There's a character, the cowboy, and I didn't understand why Meg Ryan's character was following him at first, and then it just turned into this crazy diversion in the movie. But then later on, like, as I was watching it with my wife, I'm like, I remember the cowboy, but I'm not very entertained. And then later in the movie, I'm like, okay, you know what? The cowboy was all worth it. Because, oh my God, when Martin Short's character, Jack Putter, like, has his face transformed to look like Robert Picardo's The Cowboy, the mid transformation scenes are so horrific. They're amazing, right?
Yeah, it's wacky. It turns into like a cartoon.
Yeah.
Like I honestly I had fun with the film. I think it's longer than it needs to be,
Yeah.
for sure. There's a lot of things that overstay their welcome, but the bits that do work, I think work really really well, even though they make no fucking sense. Like I was, when they kind of tease like, "Oh, I'm gonna change your face muscles to look like this other dude." I'm like, okay, like that's kind of weird. Like, are they just gonna like make like my mom's
Uh,
going, are they gonna put prosthetics on him, or are they gonna actually like just change it to him?
yeah.
And they just changed actors midway through, but kept the voice and gave Martin Short a now questionable tan. Um,
You got to give him credit though, like that 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 actor who had to emulate Martin Short he did a really good job.
He did.
Like I felt like that was still Jack Putter.
Well,
Like
they
it was
voice
still.
dubbed him, right? Yeah.
Yeah, originally he acted the scenes though.
Yeah.
Like um and I just felt his mannerisms were like perfectly still in line with this character. Like it was pretty cool. Um but yeah. But it was a whole unnecessary extra like half hour of that movie was a diversion with this cowboy character that somehow folded back into the main story of like this evil other corporation who was trying to steal the microchips and the shrinking technology so that they could be
He
the
was
successful
Sunny
shrinking.
Birch, and then the other place was like AIM, and you know,
Yeah, it was a lot like that movie for sure, for sure. And what are you gonna do? Like most Marvel movies are a copy of something else. But like I said before, even the people who made this movie openly admitted that they just wanted to rip off the plot of Fantastic Voyage. So all of these movies are rip-offs or inspired by older movies that have paved the way for stuff like this. But with that said, like you were saying how it's all cartoony and stuff. Two things to that. One, directed by Joe Dante. He's a giant Looney Tunes fan, and whenever he does these movies that for Warner Brothers, he always makes a point of squeezing in Looney Tunes noises. So there is a hiccup in this movie that is actually taken from the audio, library of Warner Brothers. That's Mel Blanc, the voice of Bugs Bunny, doing a hiccup. But this guy, you were saying, cartoony. Also, like aside from just that, you do know the other movies this guy has done, right? Like besides Small Soldiers, what he's famous for?
it's Gremlins, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
those are cartoons. You know what I mean? Like it's live action cartoons. And that's just what he likes doing. And that's what Steven Spielberg likes doing with him. So, like, I actually, once you understand that that's the vibe, and I think the movie does a great job of making you understand that by using Martin Short, right? Like,
Yeah.
as soon as you see Martin Short, that's basically like seeing Jim Carrey show up in your movie, right? You're like, okay, we're in for some stuff because you know, like Martin Short and Jim Carrey are just borrowing the physical comedy from Jerry Lewis. You know what I mean? Like it's and who you could say is borrowing from Charlie Chaplin and so far, like it's a very specific type of entertainer that only comes around once every generation, right? Like it's somebody who is that physical and can make you laugh. Like I mean, who's the modern day one?
Trying to think who would be the.
Is it Johnny Knoxville? Because man, that guy will take a beating for your laughter.
I
He
mean,
will take like a mad
if that
beating.
man doesn't get a honorary Oscar, which I will, if you want to, okay, we're on a tangent right here. He was nominated for best. What is it? The best costume design for Bad Grandpa. You ever watch that movie?
Yeah.
The fact that they didn't win is insane because like that movie hinges on people believing that that's him.
Right.
Like that's the whole premise. But
Yeah.
point aside, I on the cartooniness, I do like how they like within 3 scenes are in it, right?
Yes.
They move very quickly. Like, all right, Dennis Quaid's a fuck up. Martin Short's weird, and all right, we're in the we're in it.
And now we're getting him stabbed in his butt.
Yeah,
Like
now we're shrunk. Like,
yeah, and what's so funny is I can see how the marketing like had failed if they didn't tell people that that's what this movie is, right? Because if you went into this theater not knowing what movie you're watching, the first two scenes and then the next one is the science lab where this thing is happening, you're like, there was no lead into this at
is
all.
this post or pre Top Gun?
I want to say this is post Top Gun. I could be wrong. I think Top Gun
86.
was one of her earlier roles.
86 is the next year.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but you know what I mean? Like, if you didn't know, because I told you for this show that I need you to watch Innerspace, which is a movie about people shrinking. If you didn't know that, the the first two scenes of this movie do not set you up for that at all, right?
Mhm. No,
And then
and they don't even. I appreciate that they don't even like try to explain it. Like the tech is just there and they're using it. You know. I mean, it's still
yeah,
experimental, but I kind of they don't get bogged down on the how and the why. It's just like, all right, we're doing this, and
like the Ant-Man movies.
there's a minute for them to explain how the pin particles
Yeah,
work.
but they don't really though. They just don't.
In the bigger MCU ness of it all, I see why it makes sense why they would do that because they do
Yeah,
come to play, come to play later on. But
yeah. But
a
yeah,
lot, it was fun. Like it was it weird that Dennis Quaid's just like maybe had one day of acting the whole shoot because he's like in this pod the whole time? Yeah,
you know what I read is actually, they said that Dennis Quaid actually acted like a lot because he did his scenes after Martin Short, and he would want to do multiple takes. He kept trying to do like more and more and more and more, like to add to it. But I think it's weird because like without actually being on screen together, they have a pretty damn good chemistry, right?
yeah,
Like
no, they do.
it's impressive. So I applaud, Dennis Quaid if he was the one that did them after because he really made that feel like that was a partnership going on there. Because Martin Short can steal a scene pretty hard, dude. He can
Well, I
steal
I didn't
every
feel. I
scene,
feel like it was like a number 7 Martin Short, 7 out of 10.
right?
It was
Yeah.
a little toned down, but
I
it
think that's
worked.
it works. It works
Yeah.
because like it feels like they meet each other in the middle somewhere,
Hmm.
and it's a really cool thing. And then I thought Martin Short and his and he had good chemistry with Meg Ryan too. Like it was just a joy to watch Martin Short at this point in his career doing something because I know you kind of came to know Martin Short from Only Murders in the Building, right?
Pretty much, yeah. I
Which is a
mean,
really cool place to come to meet Martin Short also. But
his
like
work in the Santa Claus 3 was not his best, so only
yeah.
murders in the building. It's
Only Murders in the Building is a fantastic show. It's a fantastic place for for his career to end up after all this time. But like he's had some weird ones, man. But like I promise you, Three Amigos and Innerspace are just so far up there on the like list of awesome accomplishments. He even if he does a 7, he does that 7 better than most actors could. Um, it's pretty impressive. I highly recommend if anybody is a big Martin Short fan and has never seen Innerspace, check this movie out because he does some wacky stuff in it. Um, but yeah, like I mean, what else is there to talk about this movie? Like what did you think about like or I mean, guess what was your least favorite part of this movie?
I
Was
think everything just the wishy-washiness on the urgency, right? They got to get it done by 9 o'clock, right? And
but
then
then they go on the cowboy diversion.
go on the cowboy diversion. Dennis Quaid makes Martin Short go get a drink, um, and chill out for a little bit. Like it's just like they're very picky on when it doesn't matter on how quickly they get this whole situation resolved.
Yeah,
But I really like the practical stuff of the inside of the body. I thought that stuff looked super cool.
dude. So you know what?
Mhm.
Joe Dante's done a lot of these really cool, visionary movies with Steven Spielberg. Innerspace is the only one he's ever done to receive an Academy Award for visual effects.
I believe it.
Aren't they amazing?
They're
I was
really good.
shocked. I was shocked. Apparently, I read like every time you see little like blood cells and stuff like that, Jello. It was
Wow.
right.
I wonder how they film it. Like, are they just singular jellos, or are they putting jello in a
I
in a
don't know.
tube and filming the tube? And
I need to find a documentary about all the miniature stuff in this movie because it is impressive, man. Yeah, my wife and I were watching this and like, wow, what is how did they do that? But you know what? Not even the miniature stuff. Like, can we talk about like can we talk about when the bad guys get miniaturized to half size?
Oh yeah. Again, Ant-Man 2.
When they get miniaturized to half size and then they do that scene with them in the car when they're behind the people. Do you
Pretty
know
fun.
how they did that scene?
Just a forced perspective.
Yes. They did. That car is actually there's 20 feet of distance between the front seat and the back seat. And so it made it look like they're small. But oh my god, the fake arms, like the fake arms
Oh,
that
the
came around,
dolls and
that
yeah.
shit was so funny. I just like, but by that point, what all the zany stuff you've seen in that movie, is that any weirder? Like, you're right, it's a cartoon. The whole movie's a cartoon, and that's what I loved about it. But yeah, they did forced perspective. That was pretty amazing. Like, I was like, for the time, I guess, like it's cool to see that stuff like that, would probably influence how Peter Jackson, did the Lord of the Rings movies, like
Oh yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
Elf. Have you ever seen Elf? Like how they
Mhm.
did all the forced perspective on that? So cool, man. Like it's just so cool when you see things that you like nowadays, like for example, Elf, when you assume that they use CG to do that scene, but then you find out that that was an actual practical effect. Like for me, watching Innerspace, I had no doubt in my mind that it was all practical effects because they didn't have the
Yeah,
option of anything else.
they weren't calling up like the
Yeah,
they weren't fixing the mustache or taking it out.
yeah, and
They
like
were doing
so
it all on camera.
that's really cool. So like, do you know? Like, I know you probably didn't catch it, but the scene the first time that Martin Short turns into the cowboy
Hmm.
and he's talking to Meg Ryan, and then like, she's like, "Wait, you're no, but where is he?" And then she ends up going in the bathroom, and then she sees Robert Picardo again, but in the tub.
Yeah.
That was one cut.
What do you mean?
They did that practically. They use a stunt double at certain points in the scene so that you see the back of his head while Robert Picardo
Okay, yeah, yeah.
runs into the other room
Strips down.
with a breakaway suit, strips down and gets in the tub. That's one continuous scene.
It's pretty. I didn't notice it. I didn't recognize it.
Isn't that nuts?
That's pretty insane. Like for it not to be like I would say a
I
memorable scene. That's a
I
lot.
love
That is
the
a lot of effort.
ingenuity. I love the ingenuity of practical effects because like it forces people to get real creative and real like guerrilla style with stuff. And so that's a lost art right nowadays. Like when you say like Marvel gets to do movies with a blank check, you know what that check goes towards, right? Just paying for more
Yeah.
CG. Like that's what they do. And so when you say that they're going to rein in that check, what I hear is the CG is going to be the thing that suffers, right? Because it ain't going to be the acting and it's not going to be the writing. They've already written the next 40 years of movies, I'm sure. It's going to be the CG because that's the last part. That's the last place and the biggest
Yeah.
place to spend that
Well,
budget.
yeah. If that's the easy way to go about it, I think that's the smarter way is to
Yeah.
write your way out of it. But
But when it's a movie like this, like it's actually the reverse, right? They put all the budget into these practical effects up front first because they had to get these done. They had to
well,
figure
yeah,
out
you
how
have
to
to
do
do them
this.
on a certain day, and then you only get a handful of takes to do them.
Yeah, exactly. And so the idea of them having to like plan these shots and this stuff, it's so cool, man. It's just so cool. Like so I didn't really appreciate that scene as much until I read about that later. And I was like, God damn, even even the non-miniatures special effects they did in this movie is pretty impressive. So you know what, guys? Congratulations. You deserve that Academy
For
Award for
for
1987.
the lukewarmness take that I have on this, and I think the general consensus has on this movie, I'm surprised that this has not come back as a sequel, as a reboot, as a
A
remake.
remake, right? Yeah.
I mean, all these people are still alive. Dennis Quaid's maybe questionable now, but I think he can still swing it, right?
Oh, you would want it with the same actors.
Well, if I mean either way, but I mean, if everyone's alive, I think you pull on that string. I'm just
Well,
surprised they haven't.
I don't think Dennis Quaid and Meg Ryan ended their marriage on the best of terms
You one or
because
the other.
they did meet on the set of this movie, and then they went on to get married, and then they ended up having wonderful Jack Quaid, who plays Huey on The Boys, that we love. They've had a life because of Innerspace,
I
and
mean, they
I don't.
barely share scenes in this movie. So.
They really do, right? Like it's hilarious. They have like two scenes at the beginning of the movie, and then a scene at the end. I think, right? Yeah.
Yeah, the wedding where they invited Martin Short's boss
Oh my
and
god.
doctor.
And yeah, his therapist and his coworkers.
That
Um,
man got some plus ones.
I was so confused by the wedding of this movie, but but then I thought back to myself, and I'm like, oh, the whole point of this movie is just to be a comedy. It's just to be a cartoon. Like
See
it's
the
meant to be
comedy.
ridiculous.
Reading like the synopsis, like this sci-fi comedy. I don't want to say I didn't think it was funny, but I think it's funny as the way like The Martian, the whatever the Ridley Scott movie, is funny in some moments, but I didn't find it like I'm not
Yeah,
watching this for laughs.
it's
You know,
not busting you up laughing,
no.
like, but I promise you, in the '80s, it did, and that's what's weird about it, right? Like it is weird. Like I I was not busting up laughing, but I was smiling at a lot of things that they did at certain points in the movie. But yeah, like you didn't have to write as many jokes in a 80s movie to be funny. Like you just had to hit a few really good ones. Um it's a different time, right? But yeah, I do really enjoy this movie, but like I said, it does not age well, I think. Like
It overstays its welcome.
yeah, I read that Joe Dante actually like this movie. He loved all the scenes so much that he just didn't know what to cut, so it ended up being his longest movie.
Yeah, like
And I'm
imagine if
like,
this was a TV show, there'd be 2 episodes where it just were filler.
yeah, but damn it, if the cowboy didn't earn his
Yeah,
his moment in
were
that
the
movie.
fillers episodes entertaining? Sure, but were they needed as part of the story of Innerspace? Probably not.
It's weird to me to think that the side story of the cowboy exists in a movie that got an Academy Award for best visual effects because what is that? What is that character? Like, I didn't even understand. And suddenly he's like the bad guy that survives, and at the end is now trying to kill. I don't. I'm
That's what
so
I'm saying. Yeah, he
confused.
set up a sequel too, right? Like
I mean,
Innerspace 2.
are you clamoring for a sequel to this movie?
I kind of yeah, like I think you could Westworld the shit out of this. Not that like Westworld didn't like die. I mean, obviously it died off because that show got canceled. But I think you can get one season run from HBO
Is it
Max.
is it like something where like the sequel is darker, and so like the military is now using this technology to install entire armies inside of one passenger or one human being, like,
Yeah,
and then like have them just come out at the
give
other
me
end.
Homeland Innerspace.
Like it was really kind of weird to think that like these companies seem to be operating on this amazing shrinking technology without any military oversight at all. Like there's there was no military presence. Like how do you get that far in shrinking technology without the military knowing about that? Do you know
Again,
what I mean?
the plot of Ant-Man 1.
No, not the plot of Ant-Man 1 because Shield was directly involved in that.
Not in the recreation.
Uh
They knew
fair.
about the particle, but they didn't like they
Fair.
he gatekeeped it.
Fair
But
enough. I mean, but
um
again, that movie borrows heavily from.
I want more Innerspace. You know,
Because the inside the body stuff was cool.
it was cool. I think we should do more of that.
Was it not like? Did it not hit you a tiny bit in the feels
Yeah,
when you saw the baby? When you saw the baby, and you're like, "Whoa, how crazy would that be to see a baby from that perspective?"
like
Like,
fuck the quantum realm. I don't know what that is. I
yeah,
know what the inside of my body kind of looks like.
yeah.
show,
And it
show
was
me that.
was it not cool when he first got injected into his butt and you looked around and you saw all the yellow bubbles? Did you not know those were fat cells?
Mm.
Oh, really? I could tell they were fat cells because did you never have to dissect animals in high school?
I dissected quite a few animals in high school.
Yeah, you never saw the fat cells.
We never looked any under the
Well,
microscope
I
or
don't mean
anything.
cells. I mean the fat, the fat deposits. You never saw the fat like under
Uh,
the skin. There's that big layer of like yellow.
yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
so it was
we
fun to
did a
see
pig.
them recreated at that cellular level. Where it's just like they had like little things that keyed you into like what parts of the body they were in, so that even if you just understood some basic biology, you could enjoy the ride,
I
right?
mean,
Like,
yeah, I saw the blood cell, and then they had the
yeah,
eyes and the stomach, and yeah, the magic school bus tour of the body.
yeah, exactly. But without like being too heavy-handed about it, right? Like they didn't bother to like explain every single thing that you're looking at. You just kind of like, all right, I get it. I get it. They're in the lungs, like, oh, there's the eye. Yeah, it it knew how to pace itself properly during those scenes. Like those were the most entertaining scenes I think of the whole movie, right? It was like every time it was in the inside, in the interior, in the inner space, right? Because it almost felt like a different movie. Like if it wasn't for the fact that Dennis Quaid is talking to Jack on the outside, right? Like,
Yeah, you could do like a definitely a hard sci-fi with this.
yeah, you could have. Yeah, it's pretty cool. What did you think about the music?
It felt of its time.
But you know what's so
I don't want to
weird
say
about
overly
that?
produced. That's a bad thing, but you don't see that level of production in like modern day scores.
But I didn't mean necessarily the score. I meant like the soundtrack too. Like what I meant like is when you say it's of its time, which I thought was really funny, is two of the main songs in that movie were from a different time. Like
Yeah.
the Twistin' song and then
Mhm.
the Cupid song. Like those were oldies. And like they're the main songs of that movie, you know what I mean?
I mean, to me, they're all oldies, but
I know, but that's what I'm saying. That's what's weird is like the main like it was kind of doing like the what Guardians of the Galaxy does, right? They were looking at
yeah,
songs from their older time and saying, we would rather put these songs in here so that this movie could be more timeless. And so what I thought was funny about the movie is the music was the most timeless part aside from the inner space, right? Like it's just all the live action part that was just so weird in 80s. Like when they go to slam dance or when they talk about slam dancing and they meet up at the concert and I'm just like, "Oh
Club
my god."
Inferno.
Oh man. So much of it was so weird. Like the even the bougie like the bad guys that are having their picnic like with raw eggs and
Is that a
feeding
thing?
I don't know, man. It felt like something like very 80s to have like your entire like garden area looking like that white. Or what was up with like the lighting of the buildings they were working in? Like sometimes like they had like the craziest dark blue lighting or craziest red lighting. And yeah, it pops. But like
It just has to
what is
look
the
cool.
lighting at your lab that is doing that? You know
It
what I mean?
looks
Like
cool. That's all it needs to do.
or what about when the scrimshaw guy is actually like calling up his henchman on the phone and then he hangs up and he's got this crazy well lit background, right? But then the camera zooms out and he's got this like studio lighting in the corner of a
Of an
giant
empty
empty brick building.
That's
What?
just I mean, rent was cheap back then.
What is that?
You
Like,
could do that.
why did they even show us that? I don't understand what that was. Do you like, believe me, if you were asking the questions I was too, watching this movie,
It was just to me, it's like, all right, this movie's set in the 80s. That seems like an 80s ass thing to do.
I guess that's an 80s ass thing to do. I don't know. But like that's what I'm saying. Like the live action parts like are the weirdest, most 80s thing ever. But like the Innerspace parts and the music stuff, so not 80s. And that's why it's like it's a weird
Well,
movie for me.
I think they worked like it's like balsamic vinegar and olive oil, right? You shake them
Sure.
together and they work really well, but they are very like
And they separate. They
they're
do separate.
separate movies almost, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
They
you
are.
have this like hard sci-fi thing because again, it's not like a magic like Fantastic Voyage is a fantastic story, a fantastical story. Whereas this is very much science, pseudoscience based, right? But then you have like the Martin
Well,
Short
that
element.
Fantastic Voyages too. It's a science story
Yeah.
where I mean, the military gets shrunk down to go and, you know, but I don't know if fantastic is I mean, it's all relative, right? What, like, how you determine to be fantastic versus how this one is. But I just want to make sure you understand they both are sci-fi. Like
Yes.
they're both doing that. All right, cool.
They're just very two different tones, both inside and outside of the body, but I do think they work for the most part.
They do. It's weird. It's really weird. But when I watched it, I wasn't surprised when I found out that Joe Dante directed it because to me it felt like Gremlins or it felt like Small Soldiers because I feel like those movies also are two different movies. Do you know
Oh
what I mean?
yeah, they blow past the. I think the hook I can see is like there's a like Small Soldiers. There's some like adult concepts in that movie in terms of like the toy making and the commentary on that whole side of the thing. But then you have like this weird kids movie in the mix, and
Yeah.
it's the same thing with this. There's some hard sci-fi elements, but then you have like these very lighthearted scenes where let me change my face or let me hey, stop ogling my girl, I can see your eyes, like like just silly shit like that.
Oh man, I just remembered the moment where I was like, "What is this movie?" I know we talked about how like the first two scenes had nothing to do with the miniaturization scene in the lab, that came afterwards. But when you first get into the lab, because that is a long scene, by the way, the
Mhm.
miniaturization scene is like a straight like 10 minutes long, right? Like it's
Yeah,
like you meet the head scientist. He's doing all this procedural to get everything underway. He's documenting
you meet the
everything.
crew. Yeah,
You meet the crew. Then Dennis Quaid walks in. He's kind of like hungover, but he's ready to go. And like he starts French kissing like people on the staff. You're like, what? Taking selfies before it was in style to take selfies too. Like, um, and then like then they do the boot up sequence, and then they do like the cool little sci-fi stuff. He shrinks, then the terrorists come in, all this stuff, and in this entire time you have this one guy that's kind of carrying you through this scene, which is the scientist, right? His name's
mhm,
Ozzy,
yeah.
and he is the most uncharismatic human being you've ever seen on film. Like, it's so funny. It's almost like Harold Ramis if Harold Ramis wasn't doing it intentionally. Like Egon in the Ghostbusters movies. Like, the comedy is that we know that Harold Ramis is a charming person and he's doing this character this way. The difference is this guy who played Ozzy was Joe Dante's cinematographer in every movie. He's not an actor. And then Steven Spielberg thought it would be really funny to have this guy play the scientist in
Well,
Innerspace.
he's not only like that, like he gets a whole like T2 fucking chase scene through
Yes.
the mall.
And he's not an actor.
I thought it worked. I didn't
It's
hate
pretty
it.
funny though, right? Like they screen tested him and they're like, he's pretty good at this. So like, I just
The
think
weirdest
bravo.
part of that whole scene is that Martin Short's not weirded out by getting stabbed by a needle. I would be
Right in the
freaking out.
80s, bro. In the
Yeah, like I
80s.
mean, I didn't want to bring that up, but yes, in the getting stabbed in the needle anytime is sketchy, let
But in the
alone
80s, it's
during that
super
time.
bad. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was quite shocked that that was not brought up and
And
that he
yeah,
didn't like
because the scenes after where he's slowly figuring out like, oh my god, there's someone some who's talking to me. It doesn't ever occur to him that maybe the injection that he got at the mall had anything to do with
or is making him trip balls
yeah,
too, because it
like,
could be, it could be laced with who knows what it
it
was.
just doesn't register. Like
Yeah,
that's a
that
pretty big
I think for what I would look at it as is that's the most innocent part of the movie, right? Like it's super innocent. Like it's is it as much as like it is innocent that like Meg Ryan and Dennis Quaid were probably out drinking the night before you find out she's pregnant. Like, like I don't know. There's something weird about it, but it is innocent. Um, but yeah, that is I tried not to think of the 80s-ness of that syringe. Uh, but it's hard not now.
in San Francisco too. Just
Oh man. Moving on. What else can we talk about this movie to make it understood that it is just it is a spectacle, right? Like do you think it makes sense that it has an Academy Award for Best Visual Effects? Like do you
yeah.
think it's
Well,
like
especially at that time, I know they were very. It was a computer effects or special effects.
those are practical effects? That
Yeah,
was
well,
not
I know like the Academy was very anti computer effects for up until like the early 90s.
fair enough. Yeah.
So anything that had practical or kept practical going was always a strong favor.
Yeah. I think it's just because the practical kept so many more people employed, you
Oh,
know,
totally. Yeah. Yeah.
and it's just like a politics thing about, like, hey, don't take away our jobs because of computers and stuff. But yeah, it is an amazing thing to see technologically. It is a hilariously weird thing to see from a comedic standpoint. And it's just really a charming time capsule of the 80s to see like young Dennis Quaid, young Meg Ryan, and young Martin Short. Like it's pretty cool, man. Um, I don't want to draw this conversation out more than it needs to be, but like I thought it was interesting how much you compared this to Ant-Man. And so I was wondering if you wanted to just do a quick non-spoiler review of Ant-Man and the Wasp before maybe we do a full takedown of it next week or something like that. Or if you want
Yeah.
to keep talking about Innerspace for a little bit longer, that's fine too.
I mean, I'll probably watch it again before next Friday, next
You liked
week.
Innerspace that much? That's
Yeah, I
cool.
like it so much. Ant-Man of the Wasp is a great. It's another chapter in the broader story of the MCU, but I don't know if that makes it a good Ant-Man movie.
I think it's a terrible Ant-Man movie. I think it's a weirdly okay Kang movie, and I think it's a fantastic MODOK movie. And I think that's what bummed me out about that movie is that the character that was barely advertised was the breakout star for me of that movie.
He's
And then
very decisive right now. A lot of people are upset with the look and the story and
well, here's the
but
thing about it.
I think it works. Like the setup is there for the MCU. Like that is he's the perfect MCU MODOK.
But here's what I mean. Here's what I mean, and it ties right into Innerspace.
Mm-hmm.
I think MODOK is the breakout star of that movie in the same way that Martin Short changing his face into Robert Picardo is the most ridiculous scenes of Innerspace. Like right? That's MODOK right there. That is MODOK.
There
And
is a point of like it'd be one thing to tease, but to commit with it, I think that's where that's where both shine. Is you commit to the bit.
yeah, they commit to the bit, even if the bit looks super weird and wrong. And I think that is sadly the most charming part of Ant-Man and the Wasp for me. Is just this bit character that has a few scenes that steal the show. But other than that, like I didn't really feel like it was a great comedy movie in the same way that Ricky, you didn't feel the Innerspace was, right? Like it
Yeah.
had some funny moments, but I wouldn't go home and say, hey, Ant-Man's the best comedy of the three Ant-Mans. No, it's not. You know what I mean? Like, but I think I'm really happy that we watched Ant-Man 1 last week because it really instilled in me like what was awesome about that movie. And it really bums me out that the new movie does a lot of references to the old movie, but not in meaningful ways. Do
Hmm.
you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
um,
Very
so I
much
think
the punchline in that movie.
yeah, so I think that's what really hurt me is like you said, as an Ant-Man movie, it's not great because it doesn't really do service to the tone that has been established in two previous movies. Uh, as a chapter in as a chapter 1 in the Kang story, okay, I feel like they held back a lot for the with the intention of like being a Marvel movie, which is we're going to have 18 chapters of this story. We can't give it all away in the first one. And I felt like that holding back really I felt like holding back was the problem with Ant-Man 2.
Hmm.
And so I'm even more pissed that that was again the problem with Ant-Man 3. Like
I did come out of that movie. I mean, without going into much, I am excited more for Kang. I want more Kang. I like the direction they're going with Kang. Uh, was the Ant Man movie the best place to start, or put in chapter one? Because I consider Loki the prologue. I think we'll have to see how it all shakes out.
I'm sure this movie will age better with time, but like
Yeah,
my problem was like Evangeline Lilly, like what was her story arc in this movie? Like she had none.
I mean the
She
other
had
title
no
character
arc.
in this movie.
What's that?
The other title character in this movie.
Yeah, like Paul Rudd barely has an arc in this movie. Honestly, aside from Modoc, I thought the best character in the movie was Michael Douglas.
Yeah.
Like I thought he was badass. And so it's a mixed bag for me. So like there were moments in Ant-Man 3 where I was just like that's really cool. But for the most part I'm like, "Oh my god. Am I going to have to rewatch this 8 years from now to catch up on the Kang
Yes.
saga?" You know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
ugh. So, yeah. I don't know how excited I am to rewatch it to talk with you about it next week, so I probably won't rewatch it, but I remember enough about what I dislike or like about that movie. So there you go. That's my review, and I think you and I are on the same page.
Hmm.
I'm less excited for the King stuff than I was before I saw this movie. But
Oh.
other than that, I think we're on the same page.
All right.
It's chapter 28, right? Is that what it is?
That's the 40th piece of Marvel MCU content.
That's chapter 40.
40th thing. So
Oh my
we're in it.
god.
We're in it. I
That was number
The only reason I know
40.
that is because I was thinking of if you're the letterbox, we can kind of give your movie list. Anyways, I wanted to get a official list, a running list of all the MCU stuff, and tallying it up. Yeah, it is 40 different shows or specials or movies. So we're in it at this point.
Oh man, we're all in. Well, that's why I like watching Innerspace. It's pretty fun to go like
It
get
was
away.
cool to see. Um, it's like listening to an old song that has been sampled uh recently. right? You kind of get
Yeah.
a little bit of appreciation on what's when
Eh,
where it came from. And Innerspace is that.
Amen. That's pretty much why I wanted you to watch that. I'm glad I was able to pick this one for you because I know some of the previous ones have been a little bit more painful than than Inner Space. Um,
Yeah.
I do think Honey I Shrunk the Kids might slightly be the better shrinking movie. But it's been a while since I've seen that one too. But that's got Disney money, you know what I mean? Like that's a little
How many of those did they do? 2 or 3?
I don't know. I think they did several like but in fairness though, like that movie built off the popularity of Inner Space when Inner Space was,
Mm-hmm.
picking up steam at home in the home video space. So like people were really enjoying Inner Space, and so Honey I Shrunk the Kids hit at the just the right time to be the giant success it was because people were like, "Ooh, I like this shrinking story kind of thing. Where can I get more of
Where
it?"
can I get more?
And there you go. So uh, I thank Inner Space for revitalizing people's like wonder of this kind of story because Fantastic Voyage was the previous iconic version of the story, 1966. What? We just weren't doing this enough, And now we're spoiled by shrinking people, dude. Like it's like Travis he says when he's on here, it's an embarrassment of riches. Like we are so overdone with shrinking stuff. Like, you know what I mean? Like we don't just get it in the Ant-Man movies, we get it in all the other stuff, all
Oh
the other
yeah, yeah.
like
I mean, once you start parodying off your thing, like that's how you know.
like so it's pretty cool how we have this. I would say my favorite version to date so far is the Rick and Morty episode where they combo it with Jurassic Park. That is amazing because like I mean Fantastic Voyage or Inner Space comboed with Jurassic Park, how can you go wrong? It's one of the best things ever. But yeah, I had fun. I'm glad you enjoyed this one. I promise you get to talk all about a Marvel movie next week. Uh, and then I think we'll have to plan out our schedule for the coming weeks because the next one on the next big one is Shazam: Fury of the Gods, right?
Yeah, Shazam. I mean, we're depending how we do it. We got Mando coming in starting next month.
Yeah.
If we
I I by the way, I just know it's gonna suck. Like I'm trying to prepare myself for the inevitability that show is not gonna be
the
as
fall from
awesome.
grace.
Yeah.
Is it because
That Boba Fett show was terrible,
is it
man.
because of Boba Fett or is it because Andor raised the bar just so goddamn high?
Both at the same time. But Boba Fett was bad. It was
Yeah,
terrible.
yeah. Well,
Um, I just know it won't be as good. That's all I'm saying. I'm hopeful for it. And if anybody in the audience is hopeful, please tell me why. Like I need that. I need to be inspired to be excited. I do want to watch that show though, really bad, because I want it to be good. That's what I want. But I'm
I'd be
mentally
curious
preparing
to know
myself.
like when they're not running out of time, but that show there is a point where that show I don't think he has to end, right? Given the wider narrative of Star Wars. So I'm
I just don't think you're gonna keep Pedro Pascal forever in that role. I don't think he's gonna.
his
I
his
don't think he's
stock his
down to do.
stock just went up a lot. So
His stock keeps going up, and that's why I'm saying I don't think you can keep him forever.
I don't
I just
know.
don't. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he's down to be the Mando
I
for the
mean,
next
yeah,
80
he's
years.
in the
Like
suit for some of the time and then just talks it through the others. But yeah.
I feel like the Mando dying would he's the martyr of the Star Wars universe,
Oh,
right? Like
one of those creatures is not coming out of that show.
yeah, but I don't think they're gonna kill Grogu like ever. Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean? That's why I think it's the Mando. But anyways,
Yeah.
this is all soapbox stuff that we're not doing the soapbox, dude.
Yeah. We got to get it
So
out right now. So
So we're gonna get out of here. We just had to get it out of the way because we're not gonna do a soapbox tonight. But I did want to thank Ricky for joining me on this ride into the inner space. We will be back next week to talk about Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania in excess, with lots of spoilers and everything. Just to the point of exhaustion. We're going to talk about. So, feel free to look forward to that or not, whatever. But thanks to our patrons for supporting our growth and to our audience for tuning in. I see you there. I see you. Even if you're quiet, I see that you were there. I appreciate it. And I know Ricky does too. Please feel free to, if you haven't already, like and subscribe. And, you can always check us out on Patreon for our other stuff. We got like the Soapbox, which is not we're doing, but then we got like Cracking Snap, which is a show about Marvel Snap. And then we got some other stuff in there, like the Mando podcast that we did called We Have Spoken. It's all there. You can find it everywhere, or find it all there. So, yeah, I think that's it. No soapbox tonight. You got anything else?
Nope.
All right, guys. See you next time on Den Excelsior, true believers. Enough said.
See you guys.